This Soonerscoop.com video is streaming in crystal clear 4K resolution on YouTube thanks to Enjoy Vision in Oklahoma City. From the big plays to life's everyday moments, see it all in sharp focus with LASIK at Enjoy Vision. Enjoy Vision. This is where Sooner Scoop LASIK.
Hello and welcome to the family business. I'm Joe Castiglione Jr. alongside Isaac Stoops. Guess who we have in the house today? Well, not physically in the house, metaphorically via Zoom. Danny Stutsman. Danny, what's up, man? How we doing?
I'm doing great, man. Finally, great to be on this show. It's kind of a long time in the coming, but great to be on here with you guys.
It's the natural progression. You go through all the draft stuff. You go on John Gruden. You go on the family business.
Yeah. Hey, well, yeah, you went on John Gruden before us. What's that about?
I know, a little disrespectful to you guys, but I was training in Tampa, and it just worked out.
Yeah,
so it was easy. Kind of just more so. I was there for the work, but the cameras happened to be in there, so I'll take it.
I gotta ask now that we're on it. Is he as funny in person as he is on video?
Bro, he is hilarious. He's kind of like Coach V, where it's like at times he will raise his voice to really add that intensity, but it's the offensive version. And so there's been moments where so we had a group that was kind of training there, and he installed his offense. And obviously cares a lot about his plays, and then he installs the defense. He's like, whatever, cover three, and then he's like, I'd say we go to do some 7-on-7 work, and we're gonna fucking torch you guys. You guys are gonna like it. And we're like, yeah, this is you just told, this is what you want us to do. Of course, it is you love just talking ball with him. He literally just sits in there and just you can tell he loves it, man. And it's so awesome what he's doing. He's pick his brain, just hear from him, and it was a great experience.
I bet you guys had a ball just with how your personality and everything. We had Trace Ford on last week, and he said he never knew when to be comfortable around you because he never knew when you were joking or not. And so we're gonna say how would you describe yourself? I
think I got a good switch to it. Obviously there's times where in the locker room you got to have fun with it. Just be teammates. But at the end of the day, you're there to win games. You're there to get better. So when you're in that film room and you're on that field, it's time to lock in and get dialed. Obviously after when you're in the locker room with the guys and you can have a little more fun. But you got to find a switch. I think early on in my career, I think that's what I did. I did a good job, figuring out, when to be serious and when to, have fun with the guys.
How would you describe your sense of humor?
It depends. I'm kind of versatile in my game. I think obviously I enjoy some dark humor, but I don't know. I think I'm pretty good. I think I could make a joke with pretty much anybody. So I think you kind of just got to relate to who you're talking to.
It's kind of amazing because you actually alluded to it. We're going to ask about not only your maturation on the field, but your maturation off the field. But at the same time, you've never lost that personality. I feel like a lot of people, they think that you have to be serious on the field and off the field. But what do you kind of contribute your maturation to, not only on the football field, but necessarily keeping that personality while taking it super serious? Because early on, kind of a jokes guy, you're learning to play football, and at the end of the point, you're diagnosing plays. You know what's going to happen before it, but you still got that personality.
Yeah, so obviously early on in my career, that's kind of who I am, with that personality. And I think as obviously when you get to college, you're a kid, bro. You think you're 18 years old, you think you got it all figured out. But at the end of the day, looking back, you don't know anything. And I think, when Coach Venables came here and really, started teaching me defense, teaching me concepts, and, really trying to develop me into the football player that he saw I could be, I really took that to the next level. And, he told me you got to get more serious in that aspect of it. Obviously he said you can still have fun. It's still a big, kind of, goal of the program is to have fun with it. At the end of the day, you're playing a sport, you're playing a game. And so you kind of just have to find that balance. So once I figured out, all right, I know what it takes on the football field. I have a great personality. I just got to bring the two together, and I've had success with that.
Yeah. We were talking about it earlier just because you guys cracked me up, and he's also been on a Twitter heater. What made you and Jaren Kanak mesh so well out of the gate?
Two white linebackers. I feel like that just works. No, but on a more serious note, just me and Jaren's kind of relationship, when he got to school, a lot of my friends, high school friends, were like, dude, this guy's coming here to take your spot. He's all business, bro. He's a beast. At first I'm like, dude, I don't really like this dude. Jared came in and we had a day where we were testing, dude, and he was doing crazy weight on the bench, bro. And I was like, damn, this is legit. This guy is he likes to work hard. He's a great football player, but he more so just how his personality was kind of like mine, but the hard work that he has, there's any time where I'm watching film and, he'd get mad at me if I didn't call him and invite him in, and then vice versa. If I want to get a workout in, he expects to be there, and it was the same way for both of us. So I think we just kind of were attracted to that effort and that grind that we both had and that commitment to the program.
I love when you have like a preconceived notion of like a teammate or something. You're like, I'm not gonna like him, and you always become best friends with them.
Like, that's your guy.
Like even like on a walk-on standpoint, I'm like, this guy's gonna take my scout team running back position. Very, very coveted, I would say, and ended up being like one of my good buddies. Yeah. It's funny. Jaren making the move to tight end, though. He seems to really embrace it. He's had some memorable quotes this year. I mean, the Jugs one is absolutely phenomenal. I know he practiced that. He probably has some notes app with some quotes ready to roll. He seems to embrace it. How do you think that fits him? I mean, no, you're probably kind of like, I want him to stay linebacker, but he's so athletic, like you said.
I mean, dude, when he got to college, I mean, realistically, he's never played, defense. That was kind of an adjustment that he thought, was best for him at the time. He thought, I can play defense at a high level. And, kind of when it came down to it, year 3, he said, look, I think you look at his offensive tape in high school, dude was a monster. He was going viral every single week for, the runs and plays that he was making. And so, he just twitchy. Whenever I go to practice and I watch him, he makes a lot of plays with how he moves, and just now he understands defenses, bro. He knows the weak spots of the zones. And I think it's really going to help him having, that knowledge on the defense side of the ball now transitioning, because now he's an even smarter football player. He looks at the playbook and he gets it. He's up there more than anyone. His commitment, his desire, and now he's kind of facing his last year. He's going all out, and not like he was doing that before, but he's really desperate to get on that field and make a name for himself and make some plays.
I saw that clip of him in high school. He trucked like 8 dudes.
Poor Kansas kids.
Is that the one? That he went viral for that. I was like, who is this kid? And he was going to Clemson at
Correct.
the time, right? Yeah. And then he flipped. I was like, surprised, or not surprised, but I was like, are they going to flip him to defense? But it's obviously there, and I've been hearing that he's been doing really well at spring ball.
He's kind of.
I think it was a really easy transition for him. Just that's what he's used to. When the ball's in his hand, he's going to make plays.
There's been a lot of reshuffling at linebacker, to speak of. And Samuel Mosigo recently in an interview mentioned that he can always reach out to you, with a phone call. How important would you say is it to contribute, continue to contribute to your past teammates' success?
Oh, it's huge. I think, as a freshman, my freshman year, I had a guy like Caleb Kelly and Brian Mead, and older guys have been around the program for a ton, but, they always are always willing to invest more time in me as a younger guy. And I really took that, that goes a long way with a young dude. And so I've always felt like as I got older, I want to have that same support for these younger guys. So when Sammy came in, when Kip, Kobe, even Nesta, I try to take them under my wing, and teach them. I want to be a great teammate and a great friend at the end of the day. And so I'm always there for them. I say, if you ever need anything, shoot, I'm around the facility, kind of quite a bit, recently. So I'm always there to, just give them game. Sammy's making that transition more into coming inside the box, and that's kind of what I'm good at. So he's come to me for advice. I've just been able to help him, and but he's a playmaker, man. So that's what he does. Is once he gets it down in that transition, he's gonna make a lot of plays in that position.
Really excited. There's been a lot of positive notes and murmurs and rumors coming out of spring camp that he's doing really well there. You can see why. You can see why. Another guy, people talk about how Kobe McKenzie is one of the smarter football players on the team. Could you say that's the same as well? I mean, he's taking that next step. He's going to be a leader, continue to be a leader in that position.
Big thumper. He's a run. He's a dog.
Yeah, no, I think with me, leaving, he's definitely probably now the smartest. He's probably up there for sure. But his leadership, it comes off the walls, man. That's just kind of how he is when he's got there. And now he's had some plays, had some experience. It's coming all together. Watch him out there. Him and Kip are just veterans. And that's exciting to see from their change from when they've got there. With Coach Venables, I can remember some of those early days, where Kobe's tripping over his feet, Kip's getting blocked, over the fence, it felt like, and just freaking 15 yards down the field. And now watching their growth to just making plays left and right, it makes me proud, man, just to see how much hard work they put into it, and they're finally seeing the fruits of their labor.
It was, like you mentioned, like when you come into college, you're a kid, and that is how it is. It's fun, but there's also a serious aspect to it. And obviously Venables coming in and, instilling his defense and, kind of taking you guys all to the next level. Was it kind of like, I don't know, like not night and day, I don't know the word for it, but like watching Kip next to you last year, like making some of those plays that he was making, like, was that like just awesome to see? finally.
Took a huge jump.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
year.
anytime, a guy can have two pick sixes to kind of help win games, it's gonna be great.
Yeah.
But especially when it's a guy, that you've known since he first got here, you've known what he's about, his work ethic, you've seen how all the hard work he's put in. It makes it even better. This guy's making plays that he deserves to make. He's put in the preparation coming, on the Monday that week. He's done it on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So when it's game time, that's stuff he's already made in practice. That's what he's already worked for. So, I mean, it is exciting to see them make some plays, but at the same time, it's what I expect with all the hard work that they put into it.
What do you think that first moment in college is? You're like, okay, I'm not a kid anymore.
Mine was when Kenneth Murray hit me.
Yeah, so I actually, it was fall camp for me because I came in the summer. Big Mo, I was blitzing, A gap, and he was like guard, and I thought it was wide open A gap, center block away. I was like, oh, here we go. He came back, boom, he sent me flying. But I was like, damn, this is college football, and so I got back up. Obviously, tighten the helmet a little tighter, and went right back to it. But that's a hit I definitely won't forget. I mean, I usually forget a lot of them just not too long to the head, but I'll never forget that one.
Yeah.
Mine was standing in Brothers and going in for all you can drink beer. Rest in peace, Brothers. You guys did not get to experience it. If you're 18, you could get in, and 21 to drink. Yeah, let's just leave it at that. But first, all you can drink beer night at Brothers.
Nice during college.
Welcome to college.
Probably have one of those at some point. But yeah, college football wise was me going running 95 mesh, and Kenneth Murray I was on the ground. And he was just yelling at me, and I was like, dude, there's nothing to win. You're not gaining anything here, bro. I was so sad.
Mine was Kenneth Murray coming down when we do reloads on scout team. That's the worst word you want to hear when you're on scout team is reload, because the defense is mad because they screwed up and they know what play's coming. It's a disaster. Yeah. Or a swing pass, and you got to catch that 2 times in a row, and the linebacker's just flying down. I'm like, this is a concussion coming. Right.
Speaking of reloads, it makes me think of when I was at practice, your guys' defense coach, BV and Zach Alley, you guys. I mean, there's so many scout cards, and I heard reload, a million times. But what was your message to the team, if any, when Zach Alley left? Because I mean, obviously you're out the door as well. So did you have anything to say for your guys?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I wasn't, kind of past my time, but obviously, the guys that are quintessential to the defense, kind of quintessential to the program, they've had success. Our defense has gotten better and better. Last year, we were right there to become a top 10 defense. And I feel like, if some other things go our way, we know the formula. We have all the players that we need. It's like, why would you ever think leaving's the right decision there? We have kind of last year we were kind of young. It's now this team, that defense with RJ, our entire defensive line, Kip and Kobe, the Bowens. It's like, man, this is exactly the defense that you want to have when you're in the SEC for year 2. They have from freaking the top to the bottom, they have players, and now they have so much experience, and those veterans have been in that system for their 4th year now, and that's huge. And to just get a restart at another place is just something that you don't want to do.
Did you ever think about leaving after Lincoln left, or when you saw BV definitely come in, and then you're like,
oh yeah, I was a Trojan for a week. No, but yeah. So I mean, initially, it's kind of because I was a COVID kid, a Zoom kid. This is kind of how I got my unofficial visits on Zoom. So I really fell in love with the coaching staff, and I was like, those are my guys. Coach Edelman recruited me. I loved Grinch. Lincoln was great. And so when I heard they were leaving, I was like, all right, let's go Trojan, whatever they say. But as soon as I saw, Coach Reynolds get hired, I was like, all right, I'm not going anywhere. This is a guy who's, had great defenses, his entire career. He's developed linebackers, in and out. And so I was like, all right, this is my guy. And as soon as I saw that hire, I knew I wasn't going anywhere. And, that's kind of the message that, us freshmen were kind of saying to the other guys. And we wanted to know, we have someone who can build something special, build a culture here.
What was that first meeting with Brent like in person?
Yeah, I mean, me and Coach B, at first, we came off, obviously, he kind of knew me, but, our first real one that we kind of saw, he kind of came up to me and was like, and I was a freshman All-American, I came off a pretty good year. And he's like, why didn't you do more? And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, Oregon, you barely even played. I was like, I led the team in tackles. What are you talking about? He's like, the whole season, I wanted to see you contribute. And I'm like, I really didn't know what to say. I was like, I was trying to go to the bathroom, really. But then that turned into an hour-long talk, and he's telling me, about he sees me becoming a great player in his system. he just needs me to grow up. He needs me to, become better. He was like, I've been upstairs and I haven't really seen you much. And, in my mind, I didn't know that's what players did. I thought you had a lot. I thought you just had to be looking on your iPad, getting the notes in the meetings. I didn't know players went upstairs and, were right by the coaches. That's just not something that was, kind of a part of the program, with, the staff before. But, once he told me that, once he gave me the formula, I was up there every single day as much as I could after practice, just picking his brain, just trying to be a sponge for all the knowledge that he has. And I think that's really helped me develop into the player that I am today.
Safe to say it panned out. Look, there's so much people invested. I mean, even in this room between us three, you know, Coach Stoops, yourself, Big Joe. I mean, hell, a lot of people think it's my fault sometimes when OU football struggles. I catch the heat. You should see it. My Twitter is unreal, and I've had to calm down a little bit. But how much is it going to hurt you if it doesn't work out with Coach Venables here at Oklahoma?
I mean, it's going to work out, so I don't have to worry about that. But, obviously, there's no one that works harder than Coach Venables. So I know he's going to succeed. I feel like it's literally inevitable. Like, the fact that it's kind of been this long, it is painful because, like, I know that he does everything the right way. And I think it's just a matter of time. I think just kind of with the landscape of college football right now, it's just something that you have to adapt to and learn, compared to, what he's used to. But if anyone's going to have success, it's Coach Venables, just how he operates, the way he is, the type of person, type of man he is, the type of coach, he's going to have success. It's just when. And I think, with the team that they have right now, if the receivers can stay healthy, I think we got a lot of talent on offense that they can make a lot of plays. Just talking to those guys, the defensive players, it's like it's night and day. They come up and they're like, man, I wish you had this offense. And I'm like, all right, well, we can pray all we want. It ain't going to change with fast. Now you guys need to go win some games. But so they're going to have success big time.
Yeah, Coach Venables is not a guy with a plan B ever. You know what I'm saying? But
Absolutely
I mean, speaking to the offense, with Arbuckle and Mateer now, have you been out there? What have you seen, or what are your hopes for this year compared to the struggles last year?
Yeah, I mean, they got a pulse, for sure. Watching practice, I think, last year, kind of, we were really a veteran defense, versus a young offense, just kind of the nature of it. So our defense made a lot of plays against the offense, and just kind of, every single day it was just kind of one-sided a little bit. But, when I go to practice, it's like, okay, this is a veteran defense, and they're sometimes getting their ass kicked. And it's like that's great. Like, that's all. Like, I know I'm a defensive guy, but I'm like, this is, I love to see this. Like, I'm like, dude, our defense is getting torched. And it's competitive plays. It's not like, they're having busts. Like, it's receivers going up and making plays. It's the O-line, making holes, making gaps. And it's great to see. And so it gets me really excited, and the juice that Arbuckle has. They do like a red zone knockout kind of period. And they had like a play. It was, I don't really remember, a penalty was thrown, and Arbuckle was in Coach BV's face, like yelling at him. And then I'm like, wow, like, and that's some intensity you like to see. And then, later on in that practice, it was like kind of the younger groups, like the pride group. And, you see a young receiver make a mistake. And, I don't know his assignment, but, younger dude, and Arbuckle calls a timeout in their team. It was like a scrimmage, just to curse this dude out. And and I'm like, this makes me excited. Like, this is what you need on offense. Like, I have not seen that. And just to see that passion for, it was just kind of the threes going at it, and just see that, it's like, all right, we're in better hands, how we've been in the past. And it's, we got everything that we need.
With the smaller roster, you got to do that.
Yeah. Talk about, I mean, that's competitive. That's winning culture. You know what I'm saying?
Competitive depth, baby.
Yeah.
Competitive depth, even though smaller.
Absolutely.
Danny, how's the draft process been? Is there anything that stood out to you, surprised you, maybe positive or negatively in it?
For me, it's kind of it's been kind of quiet. It's been kind of chill, laid back. I've just kind of been having Zooms with teams. I had, kind of one or two workouts, but nothing crazy. I haven't had any visits. I've been able to just stay in Norman and just keep working out, keep myself ready. But I was expecting, kind of like to be flying across the country and like all this and that. But I guess people know what they're getting with Danny Stutsman, so I don't know. But it's kind of been chill. It's been laid back. Obviously the combine prep was 8 weeks of, just hard work. And I think that's paid off for what I've been able to do, my performance in Indianapolis. But it's been a great experience.
Yeah. I mean, how weird, like, is it, we were talking, like, that sometimes like the perception of a player can come down to just one metric, like whether it's your 40 or your bench press or, you know, like kind of like what, I mean, it's just a lot of pressure like through your training.
Yeah,
And
I
then
mean, I
obviously
hope it comes down to my 40 because damn, I ran fast. But yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, I mean, they look at everything. I think when you look at, you know, it's easy to look at Twitter and then, you know, see what people say and they're like, but you got to remember at the end of the day, these guys aren't the scouts. These guys don't know what they're really thinking. So you got to try to look at it, take everything with a grain of salt. You know, these guys have been, you know, watching your tape for years, so they know more than, you know, a lot of these people do. So you just have to think about like you know, kind of in that aspect.
The combines, is it as intense as it seems, like in person? I mean, we're always watching on NFL Network, but I'm like, you got to perform. There's, you know, 100,000 plus people watching, plus all the people who are going to employ you in the future. Is it really that intense?
Yeah, it's like an empty stadium. So like I was wondering like what the vibes are in there.
No, it's definitely different. You know, obviously, it kind of felt really surreal because I mean, there's a lot that goes into it before you run. You're there 4 days before. You know, kind of just, you know, you have interviews every single day. You know, you're not going to bed till midnight. You have to wake up at 6 a.m. And so there's a lot that goes into it. You got to take care of yourself. You know, it's kind of the meals are all right, but at the end of the day, you know, you got to perform at your highest. You know, at your best. And they do that on purpose to see if you can do that. See if, you know, you're not in perfect conditions. At the end of the day, you know, they want to see how you can, you know, compete against others and just go out there and just do what you do.
I didn't think about, I hadn't considered all the, like the mental stuff, like playbook stuff with the coaches, all that. What would you say was the hardest part about just the whole process, like preparation wise?
When I prepared for the combine, you know, I learned pretty quickly, you know, I'm never really in a 3-point stance. So kind of that 40, those first 10 yards were a little challenging for me, just kind of getting that down.
Yeah.
You know, I'm used to being in my 2-point backer stance, but, you know, it was just difficult, you know, because it's the first time in my life where I'm not at the University of Oklahoma. Like I'm training in Tampa, like it's just me out here. So, I mean, there's times after a long day, you know, I'm all I got. And at the same time, you know, back's against the wall. You know, it's like, all right, this is my dream. This is what I want to do. I think that kind of elevated me to, you know, take my game and take, you know, my training to the next level.
On the John Gruden show, you actually talked about the infamous horns down tattoo. It's real, right? I know you played 100%. A little bit. Okay.
100%.
That's amazing.
Yeah, definitely. It was a cool idea. It was like the third quarter. I was like, dude, we got to get that tattooed. Like, I don't know where I said, but generally, like, dude, we got to do it on our leg or something. I was like, bro, I'm so in.
Did you say the third quarter of the game?
Yeah, like during the third quarter, I was saying, I was like, dude, we got to get this shit tattooed.
Which game? Like which year?
The Dylan Gabriel year.
Oh, that's
DG's year. So I was like, yeah, we got to get this shit tattooed. I mean, you're fired up, but then like, you know, after that game, like we fly back to Norman, and then you know everyone's like talked about like I've talked to like they're always like, oh, you have to go drive back down to Dallas. So I'm like, all right, we'll do that. And like it was such a long drive after playing a full game. We got there and we're like, dude, like we came like I couldn't even get into any of the clubs because they're so like packed. And I'm like, bro, let's just go to the tattoo parlor. And so we ended up going to the tattoo parlor, and then we're there for like, and all these frat guys come stumbling in. They're like, dude, we'll get this same tattoo. And we're like, all right, bet. And so then like ended up like 4 other guys got this tattoo. One time I was down campus corner, and like this French dude starts like, he's like, oui. And he like stopped me. I'm like, yo, and he starts unbuckling his jeans. I'm like, yo, what is happening? And then just wait. He like drops his jeans and then shows me this horns down tattoo. And I'm like, yo, that's crazy. But it was a I don't know. I guess a lot of people have done it, you know, since.
That's a memory he's gonna remember forever. He's like, I got this with Danny Stutsman.
It was definitely an experience.
The next morning they wake up, probably a little hungover from the day before, and they're like, hey, do you remember we were at the tattoo parlor with Danny? We got the same tattoo. One
of my buddies, I mean, super off topic, but he has one on his leg, and it's Doodle Bob with the pencil. He got it right down the street right here. I was like, come on, bro.
They say the top tattoo artists in the nation are in Norman, Oklahoma. That's what they say.
Yeah, down the street from Logie's.
God,
bad recipe, dog.
That place's revenue has to be mostly between the periods of 11 p.m. and 2 a.m.
Speaking of OU Texas, though, you had like one of the most iconic OU football quotes. How much? You allowed to tell us how much do those T-shirts do?
It was just under 6 figures, which was, you know, pretty solid.
That's really solid.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Yeah, just under that amount.
That's so much, pretty
Yeah.
solid.
That's
probably the
amazing for a
best-selling-
t-shirt. Yeah.
Best-selling Oklahoma shirt.
Was it with Opolis with the?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah, and then so after that sold, after this, last year, I mean, obviously your butt hurt, and I had to do like media and all that, and like I walk by all the Texas guys, and I'm like, hey, one of you guys should make a shirt. You'd probably do pretty well. I go take my ass back to the locker room.
Word of advice. Oh man.
That's too good. Some players say it's like not great to talk about NIL in public, and that's kind of created a different kind of dynamic between fans and the players now. But like, what's your advice on how to handle talking about NIL and money in public? Just kind of going forward for your future players.
Dude, I mean, I don't say anything. I don't know, dude. This NIL, I think they need to make it like they need to make contracts like public or something. I don't. It's so crazy right now. Just all the numbers that you hear online. It's like it really can't believe anything you hear because it's like there's no way they're paying $10 million for a quarterback or whatever. Like obviously not here, but at other schools, and you're right. It just has to be made up. I don't know. NIL is confusing. I wish I had a few more years. That's all I gotta say, though.
Yeah, Drake said the same thing.
You probably sue the NCAA and probably get like 4 years.
Yeah.
After you're done with your NFL career, just sue for like another 3 years and come back to college.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be doing that.
Done with school. Hey, what was cool though, and before we let you go, like we were talking, I was a walk on, he was a walk on, that you donated, what was it, 50 grand? 50 to the OU walk-ons, and then walk-ons bar matched you, right?
Yeah, so after I did that, obviously those guys deserve it. You guys were walk-ons, bro. You guys were literally held to the exact same standard as us. Something that's being told is like, our players, they all get money, they all get paid. But I'm like, that's not true. I mean, obviously, as you're a walk-on, you get treated differently. That's the nature of it, even though you guys are held to the same standard. So I felt like that wasn't fair. So if I was like, I'm coming back, I want to give, that amount to them. And then, yeah, after I did that, walk-ons actually was able to give Owen Heineke a scholarship, and help, finish off, those 3 years that he had before. So kind of, it's huge to have that impact, dude. That kid, Owen Heineke especially, dude, he works harder than anybody. He's had an amazing spring. He's balled out every single day. Like I know how hard he works. His major's insane, bro. A lot of these walk-ons are taking such hard classes. Like Zach Schmidt is like an engineer, and I'm like, this is ridiculous, and it's crazy, bro. And they have to have great grades. They can't slip a little bit. They get a lot less leeway than some of these other players, and to be able to take care of them is huge. That's kind of the only money they saw like last year, and I'm just glad those guys deserve it. I wish I could give them tenfold and just tons more.
Yeah, thank you. That's still the coolest thing.
Yeah.
It's still the coolest thing I've seen in the NIL realm. Yeah, they're also the GPA boosters. We're the GPA guys.
Yeah. Hey, glue guys, we all need
higher
them.
GPAs. I wonder how come.
I have a great story real fast before we close. But Rose Bowl year, Baker Mayfield year in Rose Bowl, we went to a comedy club for one of the events in the bowl season, and they had comedians, up-and-coming comedians. There's 3 of them. One of them was Theo Vaughn. I kid you not. So we had a personal show with Theo Vaughn. And I'm over here with like Connor McGinnis, Reese Clark, a couple other of the walk-ons. And we're like over in the corner, and so he's doing his bit, and then he looks over to us. He's like,
cooked you.
He's like, "What are y'all, the team accountants?"
Yeah.
What'd you say? Yeah.
We just shut up and said, "Yeah."
What'd you say? Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
kind of.
Yes, sir.
Like,
Yes, sir.
in one way or the other, we are.
Yes, sir, Mr. Vaughn.
But he turns out to be he's like one of the most famous comedians. Yeah. It was a great story. Danny, thanks so much. We really appreciate you, man, especially during the draft process, everything. Thanks for all you've done for Oklahoma, man. We really appreciate it.
No, absolutely, man. Pleasure to be on here with you guys.
Yeah,
Y'all have a great rest of your day.
Yes, sir. Good
Thanks,
luck.
you too.
We'll see you soon.
For everybody watching, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. That helps us help you. And we'll catch you next week with another edition of The Family Business. Remember to keep in the family.